All right, now we're ready for G, where we have y equals the square root of x times sine of x divided by the tangent of x. And so as I look at this, I see we have three parts to it. We have two parts multiplied on top and divided on bottom. So as you can expect, we're going to need to use both a product rule here and a quotient rule. So this is another one that combines multiple rules together. So as we think through this, what am I going to use first? The first thing I'm going to use is the quotient rule. Whenever you use a rule, you need to have everything involved in it, every part of it. So my quotient rule, with this is the top and this is the bottom, makes sense as my first rule. You could do the product, but you'd have to group two of them. It might be like square root of x times over divided by tangent times sine, or square root of x times sine over tangent. To me, that's a more confusing process. To me, the quotient is what jumps out when I look at this problem. So we're going to have the quotient rule. We're going to have our top part, which I've been calling f of x so far, and our top part is going to be the square root of x sine of x, and then our bottom part is going to be tangent of x. Okay, now to do this, however, to do the square root of x sine of x, what do I have to do? Now I have a multiplication here, so I have to use the product rule to make this part go. So, so to get this one written down, now my derivative here is going to have a product rule. I'm going to change, notice square roots are a little bit confusing to work with, so I'm going to change my square root to an x to the 1/2, and hopefully that'll make life a little bit easier for us. So instead of going through and writing out all the pieces of the product rule, let me just write it straight. If you need to write out the rule, write out your f, write out your g, get it all put together, don't worry about that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to start moving a little quicker because I hope that over time we get to where we're not writing out the details, we're just writing out the answers. So product rule, the derivative of the first, so that's 1/2 x to the negative 1/2 times the second, sine of x, plus the first, x to the 1/2 times the derivative sine of x, which is cosine of x. So here's our problem. This part plus this part. I wrote on two lines because I also want to do a derivative over here on this side. So there's my f prime of x. My g prime tangent, we just have to look it up. The derivative of tangent is secant squared. You could, of course, write tangent as sine over cosine and then do a quotient rule to come up with that. That would be perfectly fine. But okay, there's that and there's that. So let's write down our answer. I'm going to get a new board so I can write my answer down and have plenty of space. So now what's my answer? My answer is, I'm doing the quotient rule, so I've got the derivative of the top, 1/2 x to the negative 1/2 sine of x, plus x to the 1/2 cosine of x, the derivative of the top times the bottom, so that's tangent of x, minus the top, x to the 1/2 sine of x, times the bottom. Yeah, let's put everything in parentheses here. Times secant squared x. Wow, look, I barely got everything written out. I'm sorry this is a little sloppy and hard to read. I think you all are with me, and I think you can be patient. So I've got the derivative of the top times the bottom minus the top times the derivative of the bottom, all divided by the bottom squared. And so you can see when you look at this answer, you can see how it's put together. We've got our quotient rule, and then we have our product rule right here inside of our quotient rule. This is fine. Don't simplify this. Just leave this as your final result.